Today's Why I Want video kind of marks some new history in the LEGO Rocks 99 YouTube channel. This is a Why I Want video where we take a look at upcoming NHL entry draft prospects and we talk about why I would want them for any of my favorite teams. This is the first time ever we are making a Why I Want on a goalie. And boy oh boy, what a goalie it is we are talking about today. This is a Why I Want on Yaroslav Askarov, the 2020 NHL entry draft's best goaltender, by far pretty much. Askarov is a guy who made headlines earlier back at the start of the draft year. When people were talking about the Lafrenières and the Byfields, there was another name slipping into the conversation that people were saying could be a franchise talent. No, I'm not referring to Lucas Raymond, I'm not referring to Alexander Holtz, nor am I talking about Anton Lundell. But rather, people were talking about this random guy from Russia, as if he had the potential to become a franchise guy. Immediately after learning this, I remember talking to my friends about it, and my friends were like, yo, what do you mean? It's Lafrenière and Byfield. They're the franchise guys this year, right? Who the heck is this Askarov guy? And you can imagine the shock on their faces when I told them, hey, he's a goalie. Yaroslav Askarov is perceived to be the best goaltending prospect since Andrei Vasilevskiy. Now, Vasilevskiy is kind of a weird deal because he is the best goalie in the NHL today, debatably, and he was taken in like the 20s back in the 2012 NHL entry draft. Still, that doesn't discredit how good he became and doesn't discredit the fact that Askarov is probably the one who boasts the most potential as a goaltender since Andrei Vasilevskiy. Now, some background for Askarov and where he's played and how he's played there. Yaroslav Askarov played recently this season in the VHL for SKA Neva St. Petersburg. The VHL is the second pro league in Russia. It's pretty much the AHL version of the KHL, if you think of the KHL and the NHL being equal. The VHL is a pro men's league where some of the best hockey talent in Russia, from however old they are, 16, 17, 18, up until however old the oldest player in the league is, plays. And Yaroslav Askarov is a guy who is a legitimate goaltender in this league as a 17-year-old the entire year. In the VHL, he played 18 games, had a 2.45 goals against average, and a .920 save percentage. Now that's a .920 save percentage. That is absolutely phenomenal. Askarov ranks as the 47th best goaltender in the VHL in that statistic, which isn't great, but at the same time, every other player on this list is much older than Askarov is. In fact, the VHL has never seen a full-time goaltender at 17 years of age, ever. There have been a total of 6 goaltenders, U18, who have suited up in the VHL for at least one game, and Askarov is the only one who has actually spent a significant amount of time there. Yaroslav Askarov was a legitimate goaltender in this league, making him the first full-time 17-year-old to establish himself in that tier. To put it bluntly, he's doing things that no Russian goaltender has ever done before. If you want to take a look at the Vasilevskiy comparisons, when Andrei Vasilevskiy was in his draft year, he was playing in the MHL. The MHL is the junior hockey league in Russia. It's like if you took the OHL, the QMJHL, and the WHL and you combined it into one league, the MHL is what you get for Russia. Andrei Vasilevskiy played in the MHL and he was pretty good, but Yaroslav Askarov took a step beyond that. Yaroslav Askarov played in the MHL last year when he was only 16, and if you take a look at when Andrei Vasilevskiy was 16 playing in the MHL, the same league as Askarov was in last year, his statistical profile was a little bit better, yes, but he was playing on the best team in the MHL that season. Yaroslav Askarov in the MHL was playing on a mediocre team, and he still managed to put up some really good numbers. Now, I will say, Askarov has been kind of getting a little bit of the dump because his World Juniors performance wasn't all too great. But you have to remember, this guy was 17 playing against 18, 19, some 20-year-olds. And sometimes a sample size of 5 games isn't going to tell you all there is to a prospect. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. If you want to take a look at Askarov's performance and capabilities as a Russian national team player, though, then look no further to the U18s last year, where Yaroslav Askarov had a .916 save percentage playing as a 16-year-old. Askarov played in the semifinals game for Team Russia against the Cole Caulfield Jack Hughes USNTDP United States program, and he beat them. They only scored 2 goals, and they were 2 Cole Caulfield goals late in the game. And the way Yaroslav Askarov was playing was giving this entire team a rough time. Zegras, Bolty, Hughes, these guys couldn't get one by him. And in the shootout, Askarov stopped all 5 US skaters. He's a guy who, when I watched that game specifically, it really showed me the traits that make him such a great goalie. The biggest thing to me that stands out about Yaroslav Askarov, aside from the fact that he is 6'3", so he's a good frame, and the fact that he's right-handed, which is really, really weird, he's right-catching, I mean, is the fact that this guy has the mental fortitude of a marathon runner. You know, if you're a fast marathon runner, if you're a guy who can run a long amount of time while doing it at a very high pace, you can kind of understand the mental fortitude and the mental stability foundation that needs to be planted within that player. You need to be able to discipline yourself, to run properly, and to force yourself to do that for upwards of 2 to 3 hours. Yaroslav Askarov is a guy who I see the same kind of mental fortitude within, and the way I want to illustrate that is if you took a scan of Yaroslav Askarov's helmet, his right-hand glove hand, his blocker, and his body positioning towards the puck, and you tracked that over a whole 60 minutes, when the puck is in his own zone, Askarov is latched onto that like a hawk. The guy always has his glove up. The guy always has his blocker in a position to make a save. And the fortitude comes in mentally when the opponents circulate the puck, they cycle it around. Askarov has no problem just tracking it, moving left, right, center, while keeping his frame of body still as a statue. The guy has such a calm presence in net, and when that shot comes, his reflexes are really quick, and he's just a very good puck-stopping goaltender. The qualities that he possesses as a 17-year-old playing against other men are so translatable to the NHL, and they're so coachable, because if he goes to a system that wants him to be a little bit more aggressive or a little bit more reserved, he's a guy who has the tools to adjust. And because he is so strongly talented, that's the reason why everybody is saying that when this guy gets drafted, the second he puts on a sweater, he is automatically the most valuable goaltending prospect in the NHL. An Igor Shestyorkin is very valuable, but the guy is already a little bit older. Yaroslav Askarov has legitimate potential to be a Vezina winner, and even if he doesn't, the odds that Yaroslav Askarov doesn't become at the very least a top 15 goalie in the league are somewhat low. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's unlikely. Scouching said this best on one of his live video chats. This is not some 5'11" CHL goaltender who wins a lot. This is a legitimate NHL frame who has established such a good track record for himself that he is able to play in the territories where no 17-year-old goalie has ever played before. And the way he's able to stack up in these leagues makes him an NHL prospect that is valuable enough to go in the top 5, probably. The only reason he won't go in the top 5 is because he's a goalie, and not every team in the top 5 is going to need a goalie as much as some of the other teams are. Also, the existence of Lafrenière, Byfield, Stützle, etc. really paints a picture in a team's head when making a draft decision saying, okay, do we want to go with a Stützle or do we want to go with an Askarov? What do we value more? The long-term #1 starting goaltender or the potential offensive dynamo that a Stützle can become? So there are a lot of philosophical questions that go into where Yaroslav Askarov is going to be picked, but there's a reason people are saying that this guy should be a top 10 caliber player. It's just a matter of need and a matter of context that will depict where and when Askarov gets taken. So with that, we wrap up our Yaroslav Askarov Why I Want. Notice I didn't talk about where he's going to be projected because at this point nobody really knows. It's just top 5, top 10. He should be gone by 11 or 12. That's where I predict, but he could go so much earlier than that. And anybody who's been following the draft knows how good this guy is, so keep your eyes out, Vezina Trophy in 2024, 25, or whatever. There's a new Russian goalie coming for your tails. I hope you enjoyed this video, so that 99, and bye.